Athletes, take your mark. Get set. It's time for the Addict to Athlete podcast. Everybody out there, Coach Blue Robinson here. Hey, thanks so much for downloading, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast. We greatly appreciate you doing that. And really, thank you so much for all that you've done through this Christmas holiday. We just wrapped up our Project Elf, and it was a great success. Last Monday, we had about 20 elves out here wrapping gifts for those who have been fallen on some hard times. And through your contributions and efforts, we were able to conquer that. So thanks so much for all that you guys have done. Remember, stay close to our website, addicttoathlete.org. You're going to find all of our backlog podcasts, blog posts that Athletic Director Marissa puts on there, and really resources that you might need to help overcome addiction using the team approach. Athletes, we're excited today. Got a guest in studio. You're only our second guest in studio. Most of our guests come online and we see them digitally, but we got a real live breathing human in here today, and we're excited. I'm excited to talk to Patrick Overholt, who has quite an experience with not just addiction recovery, but like the sports athletics and kind of like the erase and replace philosophy in real time. So Patrick, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about you. I'd love to jump into your story. You've got an amazing program happening up in Salt Lake County that we want to really promote, but let's start from the beginning, brother. Welcome to the podcast, and tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, thanks, Blue. First of all, just so grateful to be here. I've kind of followed what you guys have been doing and kept up on a little bit of that, done some research, and just love everything about what you guys are up to here. And I feel like a lot of our mission and our values at Good Time Golf and things like that align with what you guys do. So, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I feel lucky, a guy living in recovery one day at a time, to be here.
Absolutely.
Chatting up recovery and sobriety with you. This is a gift.
Thank you.
Yeah, but a little bit about me. Give you my qualifications.
Let's do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, so born and raised in Salt Lake. Very lucky, great parents. Had lots of opportunities. Got into sports as a young kid. That was kind of my avenue. I was raised, non-LDS in a pretty LDS predominant community, and from the beginning felt a little out of place.
Yeah,
that was me, but had some great friends, great people around me, and like a lot of the stories we hear, got into experimenting with drugs and alcohol at a young age. 13, 14, and it was always an avenue for me to not feel that unease, not feel that discomfort, feeling out of place.
Yeah.
It was like the first time I drank or used anything mind-altering, I felt like, oh man, I'm arrived. I want more of this.
Absolutely.
I found my outlet. And so dabbled with that for a while in high school, and really pursued athletics strong. I was baseball, basketball, football, golf was a big one of mine. But from a young age, I could always throw a baseball, and everyone always told me, hey, you have a future in this. If you stay on track, it's going to take you places.
All that potential, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was very fortunate. I came out of high school and had a scholarship to Santa Clara University, Northern California.
Brilliant.
And went on to play there. Had a great freshman year. I was an All-American, so boosting that ego a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Rightly so.
I felt like I had arrived, and the drinking and the using and things like that. I felt very entitled, like I was allowed to do what I wanted whenever I wanted. And progressed and had a good career there at Santa Clara. After my first year, I had Tommy John surgery, so I blew out my elbow.
Oh man!
Which was kind of one of my first roadblocks, thinking, oh man, maybe I won't be able to play baseball the rest of my life.
Yeah, the first question mark, huh? Like, ooh, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
So, and that was my introduction into opiates. I remember having that surgery and going through that and experiencing some pain. And I remember going through that first bottle of painkillers in 2 days that was supposed to last for a month or something.
Right.
And I called the doctor and I said, hey, I need some more of these. And they're like, that's not really how this works.
Right.
So I was able to kind of put that on the back burner, but I had the introduction there.
Yeah.
And alcohol had always been my way out. And as I redshirted my sophomore year in college, the alcohol use picked up, and that was my way to cope. And got through that. Was drafted after my redshirt sophomore year by the Philadelphia Phillies.
Wow!
Back in 2005. So
man,
Yep. One thing I remember about that day was, you know, I had an agent and I thought I was great and all this, and they were telling me I was great, and I was supposed to be a, you know, top 5 or 6 rounder.
Right.
And I fell all the way to the 22nd round, which was the second day of the draft. I'll never forget, you know, hearing my name called. You've been drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies, and
Man.
I was so hungover from the night before, being in such self-pity that
All the anxiety, all the buildup, like what's going on.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'll never forget that moment. I'm like, this is what I've been working for my whole life.
Like, this is it.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of missing it to a degree. Like,
Exactly.
whoa, gotcha.
Exactly. So one of those things I kind of always remember and go back to. And anyways, signed my professional contract a couple days later, and I was off to enjoy all those long bus rides in the minors. And, you know, I progressed really fast. I had a lot of success in the minor leagues. You know, it was like a half season in single A. I got moved up and progressed to double A pretty fast. You know, so I felt as though I was well on my way.
Right. It felt like the path was clear. Like,
Exactly.
Here I go. Okay.
Yep. So spent a couple years in double A, triple A, back and forth. It was 2008. I was a double A all-star, and I was a closer, so I was a relief pitcher. And
Gotcha.
it was, you know, if it's a close game, you better be ready to go.
Got to be on top of it. Yep.
Remember having a lot of success, and, you know, I kept hearing my name, you know, next guy that goes down in Philly, you're going to be the guy, and this and that. So once again, ego is a factor for me, and I'm feeling good about myself.
It's an adversary, isn't it? Yeah, brother, I hear you.
Exactly. So, yeah, I remember hurting my shoulder that year, and, you know, I just wanted to keep it going where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the opiates were back, you know, reintroduced into the picture, and, you know, slowly my performance dwindled, you know, as I tried to self-medicate and things like that, and perform and all that at the
Makes
same time.
sense. Follows the pattern. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, spent a couple more years there, double A, triple A with Philadelphia, and it was when they won the World Series, which was really cool. It was cool to be part of that, and, you know, got to know a lot of those guys. And but yeah, I think 2009, 2010 was released by them, which is something, you know, I'm like, oh, that would never happen to me. I've seen it happen to all my friends.
Right.
The next couple years I put independent ball, which is a very different form of professional baseball.
I'll bet it would be.
Yeah, it's non-affiliated. You know, there's no drug testing, which is something that had really kept me hanging on for those years in the minor leagues, I feel like.
You had a purpose and a reason to at least ride the rail there.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. So, you know, I'm meeting these people who have played independent ball and been in the major leagues and trying to get back, and, you know, watching how they live their lives, and, you know, marijuana, amphetamines, all different types of things before, during, after the games.
Right.
And so I fell into that pretty hard, you know, and that was kind of where my tailspin began a little bit.
Right.
And, you know, so 2010, my oldest daughter was born. I have 3 daughters. I'm a girl dad. Yeah.
Changes things, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Puts things into perspective, yeah.
It does. It's been, I always get emotional talking about my girls, but that's been the biggest blessing in my life.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious, brother, because you bring up a good point, and some people would say, well, you know, you talk a little bit about the anxiety and the ego and that kind of stuff. Yet when you're walking out to the pitcher's mound, when you're taking the field, there's anxiety there. Some would say it's the same, some say it's different, but how in the world could you control anxiety in that clutch situation versus like the unknown anxiety, right? Because it's like before you throw that pitch, whatever, like you've got anxiety.
Yeah.
It's the same anxiety that I think pressures us into like trying to suppress it with substances, but it's a different form to a certain degree. How in the world, like, thinking back now, how in the world could you channel that anxiety on the mound versus, you know, the day after the game where it's like, okay, what's coming next? Am I going to be cut? Am I going to play? Am I moving up? It's the same, but it's different, isn't it? That anxiety. How can you control one yet kind of feel like you're losing control in another?
Absolutely. That's such a great question. And you know what? I can go back there like it was yesterday. It's like you get the ball and you're on the mound, and after you throw that first pitch, that anxiety's gone.
Right.
For me, I'm locked in. I'm in the game. You know, that's what I've always done my whole life.
Right.
That was always pretty easy and normal. And then you talk about, the anxiety of the day after and fearing the future, the unknown. That's a whole different type of anxiety for me. That's something I have never been able to deal with great, and something that I work on today.
Yeah. It makes sense though, right? Because like you think, all right, how could I become so professional like with that handling of it and channel it? It's the same principle, right? But it feels like it's not, but it truly is. So, I would imagine that as you're experiencing sobriety, as you're building your foundation, those are those practice pitches, so to speak, to the point where if you keep, I think the repetition of those things, it can make you, it can make that permanent. So I love the fact, listeners, that you're hearing this. It's like, it's funny how some people can have these paths that seem so clear and have such confidence, yet something that just is off just as simple as a few degrees can have a whole different experience. And then we're like, well, what's wrong with you? You're supposed to be a professional. You're supposed to be, the man, right? But it's like, yeah, but it's different. And I don't think we realize that although we can excel in some areas, there's other areas that we doubt.
Yeah.
You notice that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's so true. It's funny, I can go out and throw a baseball in front of 10,000 people like it's nothing. But, you early on in recovery, you put me in a self-help group or that environment with 5 other people, and I'm tensing up, clamming up, talking about my feelings, and it's a totally different feeling. But the ways to, I guess, channel it today, there are so many tools and so many ways that I've learned over the years to really work on that.
So then, was it the catalyst of becoming a father that put your life a little bit more into perspective of like, I better pump the brakes here? Like what was the situation? What got you into a mindset of like, maybe I need help?
Yeah. So 2010, Lucy, my oldest, was born, and I'm in my second year independent ball. Things aren't going great. My addiction's getting worse. And I decide you don't make money in the minor leagues, so I was barely hanging on, supporting a family, and I'm like, you know what, this is it. I'm ready to pursue whatever's next, whatever comes next, and support my family.
What was that realization like, brother? Don't skip over that. That's an important one, because when you're on something so powerful that you love, that you've had dreams about, that you've been able to taste almost, right?
Yeah.
But then to have a realization of like, maybe I better shift gears. It's an interesting thing. We talked a little bit about Max. I was telling you about Max Hall, and he was saying that same thing after his concussions and stuff, and he realized that, this whole life that I've now designed is over. It's an interesting dilemma, because it's like, well, then now what?
Yeah.
So when you made that decision, did you have any idea what would come?
No, full of fear. I'll never forget that moment. I was in Amarillo, Texas, and it was late August. Our season wasn't completely over, but I was ready to be done. And
tell.
Yeah, and I went in and told my manager, and that whole day I was just teary-eyed and realizing this is it. And went out, pitched my last game. I think it was decent, if I remember, but got in the car after that game and, started the trek back to Salt Lake, and, I was in tears for hours, just... It's
a long drive to be alone in your head, right?
Yeah, across Texas, exactly, and not knowing how to cope with it. So, yes, that was one of the most fearful moments that I've had, and so I progressed. I got home that August, 2011, actually, and... my mom was my best friend growing up. I'm such a mama's boy, and we were very close. My parents were amazing. And I get home, and something's off with my mom. I can tell she's always was a very active person, and things like that. And she can't get off the couch, and so we get her into the doctor. This is late August 2011, and come to find out she's in end-stage liver failure.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so 52, very healthy. She's one of the ones
so young, yeah.
Yeah, one of the most influential people in my life, to see her kind of deteriorate and go downhill. So we got her in and, did the best we could, not ever experiencing a situation like that. None of us knew what to do. And, so... A couple months later, she gets on the liver transplant list, and she's at the top of the list, the sickest person. And it was right after Thanksgiving, they gave her, I think it was about 30 days to get a new liver, else her body was going to shut down.
Gosh, man.
And December 4th of that year, she passed away, and it was, very, very hard to watch her go through that.
Yeah.
I still get emotional talking about it.
Well, for sure, man. The helplessness of it all, too. It's like, what I remember when our child was born, the very first time I felt like extremely helpless. I'm like, I'm no good here. Those kind of situations put things into perspective of like what we can and can't handle. So I can completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. So it was tough. We were full of hope. Her being at the top of the transplant list. That
she's next.
Yeah, she's gonna get
getting
that.
Called up to the majors. Going to get a new one. Yeah,
exactly.
Gotcha.
And I think it was 4 days into that 30-day time window they gave us that we took her in, and we had a really hard night. Saying goodbye and watching her, take her last breath and things like that. And, moving forward, that was another point where that's where my tailspin, really began.
I can imagine.
It was feelings of helplessness. I don't care. I don't have a person to talk to here.
Right.
The next year or two were full of lots of drug use, drinking, around the clock for me. And, I hadn't been introduced to recovery at this point. So I didn't
know it was there, huh?
Didn't know it was there. Didn't know that there was a better way. The addiction runs pretty strong in my family. So like I had grandpas, uncles, aunts who I'd heard, they're alcoholic and this and that. And I'm like, well, that's not me. That's them.
Yeah. Like, I'm not that bad.
Yeah, but deep down, always, even as a kid, I always knew, there's something different about me and the way that I drank. And
what did the people around you notice? Because I've noticed this too, that for a while we can kind of like hide from it, but it does become obvious to the people that love us and care about us, like your dad and maybe your wife or what have you. Like, when did they start saying, Patrick, you okay? Like,
yeah,
I got it, don't worry. And they want to believe you, but they're like, something's off. Like, how did they see you through those couple of years after mom passed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So not being aware of it at the time, but looking back now, I think my family, they've always been my biggest support system.
Right.
Stuck with me through everything, which I'm so lucky to have. But yeah, I think, little comments here and there. Are you okay? I'm worried about you, things like that.
Yeah, and you just rub some dirt on it and I'm fine, huh?
Yeah, I'm okay. And I was always, being that baseball player and, with the ego, and things always looked okay on the outside, And,
absolutely.
And I was a guy, I was a tough athlete. I don't talk about my feelings.
No way. Yeah, that's a weakness.
Hard. Yeah, exactly. So, I think there was lots of concern, but it was also kind of overshadowed with the fact that the rest of my family was grieving and going through their things
exactly
at the same time. So, summer 2012. I got my first DUI. Decided to run away to Wendover.
The beautiful city of Wendover. Yeah.
That became my nemesis. I would try to run from my problems and got a DUI there. Was introduced to treatment. Went to treatment for 30 days. Got out and said, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. And not putting any of the steps or any of the work that everyone told me to do into action, I was right back where I was, but worse,
Right.
As they say.
Now you had some knowledge, but then you also had another goal,
Exactly. I wasn't ready to be done, and I know how to deal with hard feelings. I drink and I use, and that's how I suppress them.
Absolutely.
That was still my mentality, and 30 days later, DUI number 2. So,
really that fast?
Yeah. Wendover.
It's like the universe is trying to tell you something, huh? In Wendover.
Yeah, coming back from Wendover.
Brilliant.
So I'm waiting. Yeah, great decisions. I look back now and I'm like, wow.
They were necessary steps. I get it, man. Makes perfect sense, though.
They were very necessary. So as I'm waiting to face the charges on DUI number 1 with the judge, here's this pending one with the same judge. So
he's like, again?
I'm full of fear, facing prison time. And I was fortunate enough to go to treatment for 90 days, and I always tell this story. So I ended up, working with a therapist, and I was going to go to a trauma therapy or trauma treatment center in Santa Barbara. And this was a Thursday, and I had been drinking, and he said the next program starts on Monday, and it's a 6-week stint. So in my head, I'm like, I'm going to get better. I'm going to go to Santa Barbara, get some treatment. So I end up going, start driving, pack my car full of everything I own, say goodbye to my kids, which, looking back now, it's hard to think that I just left them at that point. I had a newborn baby, my second daughter at the time, and I get in the car and I'm heading to Santa Barbara. I'm going to get well. And as I'm as I'm almost to St. George, it's about 11, 12 at night, I start getting calls, from all my family, all my friends, very concerned about me. And so I had the knowledge to get off the freeway,
right?
And rather than just parking and things like that, I had wandered about a mile or two off I-15 out into the desert, and it was about 1 a.m. Ended up high centering my car.
Oh, wow.
And this is late November, so it was cold, and it's pitch black at night, and I'm talking to a friend, I guess the only guy that I would answer the phone for. And he says, "Where are you? Do you see any lights? Do you see any way to get help?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I see some lights." And so I get out of my car, my black car, which is high centered.
Yeah.
I have 10 pairs of shoes in my car, but decide to get out barefoot, and I have 10 jackets. So I get out in a t-shirt,
right?
And I'm at my low point at this. Just my addiction has hijacked my brain, and I'm not thinking,
right?
And so as I think that I'm going to get help, I wander out into the desert.
You get further into it.
I'm about a mile away from my car to look back, and I don't know where my car is. It's almost 1 a.m. It's starting to rain and almost hail down there. And I had about 2% battery life left on my phone. And somehow, some way, power greater than me, my friend was able to reach out to Highway Patrol, and they were able to track the GPS on my phone. This is 2013. So
wow, this took some doing. Yeah.
The fact that they were able to do this is amazing. And, I'll never forget the highway patrolman getting out there. I see these lights, and they said I wouldn't have made it through the night. I'm walking on cactuses, and I'm almost hypothermic. I'd been out there for a few hours, and I'll never forget the highway patrolman coming out, and he wasn't even able to drive all the way out to me, but he walks up and he says, "What are you doing out here?" I'm in the fetal position.
It's a great question.
I said, "I don't know."
Yeah.
And I got as vulnerable as I could at the moment. I said, "I'm an alcoholic and I'm having a really hard time," And so they were able to get an ambulance out there. He gave me his coat, and they took me to the hospital. And, I've been so lucky with the experiences I've had and the situations I've put other people's lives in jeopardy on the road. I never thought I'd be a person who drank and drive.
Right.
But with the grace I've been met with, and the help that I've gotten, I'll never forget that from the highway patrol. These guys saved my life, and so fast forward, I think I'm okay, and I'm gonna be all right. And next thing you know, I look down, I'm handcuffed to the bed.
Oh, you're like,
at the hospital.
Crap, a consequence. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
So
I spent a night in jail, I think, and once again, my family shows up like they always have. My brother flies down and drives me home and gets me to uni, so I'm in detox for the second time in a few months. And,
it's a little bit of a different place too. Yeah, it's intense.
So so I guess where I was going with this story is I show up to treatment for this 90-day stint, and it's Thanksgiving. I'll never forget. It's midnight Thanksgiving, and I'm sitting there in this treatment center eating Thanksgiving dinner by myself. Yeah, and kind of just all hits me. What am I doing with my life? And I've gotten to these places I never thought that I would ever get to, jails, institutions. Yeah. So fast forward, I was able to do 90 days there, and I'll never forget, I spent I think it was the first anniversary of my mom's death there, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's.
All the big ones.
Wedding anniversary.
Wow.
My 30th birthday. So I'm sitting there, and I'm not healthy at this point. I'm still got some self-pity going on, and I was able to go to sober living after that, and that's where I really met such a great community of sober people.
It's not what you thought, huh?
No, not at all.
Not wild.
Not at all. I see all these guys living their lives with smiles on their face, living with purpose.
Yeah.
And that was the first glimpse I got of, maybe there is a better way.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
And I was able to stay sober for a little over a year that time, and I stopped doing the work, as they say, and I've seen it and I've experienced it. Stopped doing the work, and I'm like, I got this. Yeah. Next thing you know, I'm tailspin. I'll do the marijuana maintenance. I'll I start getting into these substances that
try and find an angle.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm going to do this my way.
Yeah.
And that just took me back and forth for a bunch of years, until this last point, it got to the point where, I had a head full of AA or head full of recovery, as they say. And,
right.
Everyone's out there living their lives, and I'm absolutely miserable, still self-medicating, still doing that. And it got to the point where, I didn't care if I lived anymore.
Right.
It got to that point, and, I look back at it now, and it's hard to say because I have these 3 amazing daughters. I have this life today that I could not imagine, and to look back at that and the selfishness, the self-centeredness, it still kind of eats at me a little bit.
Right.
But that's what it took for me.
Absolutely. I hear that kind of stuff, and I think, those kind of situations and experiences, there's the depth of them will only truly be appreciated by you. But I think about walking away from the car, the wrong direction out there. Look how far you had to get away from everything and get down to 0. I mean, and 2% saved your life. That's wild. That's why on Team Addict to Athlete, we have the Roman numeral 2. And the reason why we do Roman numeral 2 and not the number 2 is because in the Roman numeral system, they don't identify 0. So you can only be 1 or more. And I think that's kind of awesome. But then once you have the number 2 next to the number 1, all of a sudden you have a foundation to build on. You can build on that. It becomes a foundation of structure. And I think that 2%, man, is kind of an interesting thing. But look how far you had to get out of that and leave everything behind.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just incredible, brother. I typically tell my athletes, I say, it's your resistance to what is that causes your suffering. And you're looking at how much resistance you were having towards, life, emotions, careers, and it was causing so much suffering. And the minute you embraced that, you start seeing all those breadcrumbs that were the pain that you left behind become that path to get back. As you started making those changes, as you started kind of having those realizations, you started seeing that, wait a minute, this is possible. And I say this a lot. We say it at the end of every podcast, turning your mess into the message. People that go through this have extraordinary stories. I've never heard one that's been dull. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
They're all kind of wow, that's incredible. When did you start realizing that your story had purpose? There's a reason that 2% saved your life. When did you start realizing there's another side of that coin?
Yeah. Well, first of all, turning your mess into a message. I love that so much. I listened to a couple of your episodes, and there's so much power in that.
Yeah.
But realizing that my story, had purpose was basically listening to other people and where they'd been, and realizing, hey, our experiences are different. My addiction took me down a different path than yours did.
Right.
But the feelings and the root causes and a lot of those things they're very similar.
Very similar.
So I start hearing my story through different recovery avenues, and then talking to people and seeing that, hey, I haven't done this deal perfect. I've fallen on my face. I've had opportunities to get sober, and I'm back at it trying to do it my way. And there's power in that for me. That if there's one thing that I want to get out there today, it's it does not matter where you've been. It doesn't matter where your road to recovery or your addiction has taken you. It's where am I at today?
Right.
And I always heard, keep coming back,
Yeah, and they meant it.
Exactly. And I was always met with grace and love, and they'll love you until you can love yourself and things like that. And so if there's one thing that, if there's anyone out there listening, it's just that there's no perfect time, and it's never too late to really dive into this deal. And there's so many amazing opportunities and avenues out there, and so much help, especially in today's world.
Yeah. It's kind of around every corner. If you know where to look, you'll see it. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though, too, brothers. I'm listening to you, and I'm like, it's kind of incredible. Just the emotional awareness that you've established. You talk about that ego before.
Oh man.
And I know it's still. I mean, don't get me wrong. You need to have a healthy sense of it. The unhealthy part of it's not good, obviously. But this empathic part of you's now come forward, and I can feel it. I can see it. It's there. I can see it in your eyes. Mm-hmm. Does it scare you, or do you like it? Do you like being able to feel what you're experiencing, and then feel the people that you come in contact with? That, ooh, he's got a story. I wonder what that's about. and knowing kind of how to lean into it instead of like, well, I'm not going to go there because we're alpha men and alpha males and we don't do that, right?
Yes.
Because you don't do that now. Like even just the humility you have, even coming here to our little humble place, you're just like, wow, like I can see it in your eyes. That means you've always had it. It's always been there, but it just kind of took a back seat for a little while. What's that like now, allowing that empathetic part of you to come forward to be genuine and real versus that ego-intensive kind of mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was a person who was raised, pretty humble, and like I've said, my parents were just amazing. They instilled so many good values and everything I could have ever dreamed for. But as I progressed and I had some success, that ego did inflate. People were telling me I was great, and
right.
I'm sitting there soaking it up. And yeah, there was a time in my life where I fed off of that, and I liked it. And I'd be lying if I, said I didn't like it.
For sure.
But today, I feel like it's a daily deal, but I can keep my ego in check. If I get outside of myself and realize, there is some purpose to what you've been through. If you can help one other person today, and give them a little bit of hope, because there were so many people there that gave me hope when I needed it.
That's brilliant. I love that. And so with that foundation now of sobriety, as you went through treatment and sober living and stuff, and you make your return, I'm curious because I think great minds think alike, and you've had the same kind of mindset that we've had here on Team Addict to Athlete, which is utilizing some of the talents and purpose that we have to help benefit the lives of others. But I'm curious, you went a whole different direction. Golf is very different to a certain degree than the team sport of football, baseball, basketball, that kind of stuff. But I think there is a lot of spirituality and connection in golf. And I think if you were to dissect some of the pieces of it, you can find some real beauty there, from the patience and the skill level and the practice and the elements. Everything has to kind of be in check, and you have to be present, right? How did you make that leap, and why did you make that leap? Because that's an old man sport. What the heck? Like, tell me a little bit about that switch, why you found passion in it, and kind of what you did with it.
Yes, absolutely. Golf for me is it's been a passion of mine. My grandpa taught me how to play when I was young. Brilliant. And I've just always loved it. I've loved watching it. I've loved everything about it. One of my ways to connect with the universe, I feel spirituality is outside. And for some reason, it may sound funny, but on the golf course is one of those places.
No, I believe it.
Yeah.
It's the exact opposite of the desert you found yourself in.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Beautiful. Lush
and green and beautiful. And, the golf course was a place where in my addiction, I would go to escape, but in unhealthy ways. I would go and isolate and play by myself, and probably cheat on the scorecard,
right,
to make myself look better. And so the way that Good Time Golf came into fruition was, I was in a support group a couple years after treatment, and I was introduced to this group of guys, and the guy who ran the group said, "You guys should look into running a sober golf league." And I had experienced sober softball and sober volleyball and all these great avenues and outlets, and I had benefited from some of those, and I had seen the camaraderie and the team building and just seeing people become themselves. And so when the idea of sober golf league came up, it was, well, why not? Why not give it a shot?
Absolutely.
And so myself and Tom Olson, the other co-founder of Good Time Golf, it's funny you say it's an old man sport, because Tom's pushing 80, and
I love it.
You see us
wisdom there. There's wisdom there, yeah.
And he had told me his story, and like I said, parts of our story were different, but we had been through so many of the same things. And, he was like a big brother, a mentor, a father type figure to me, and I just really admired him. And so we said, yeah, we're going to give this a shot. And that was 2013, I think, was our first year. And so it was Tom and
That's awesome.
And Tom's brother, Larry, who is a huge part of Good Time Golf today, and a couple other people in recovery. And so our first year, there were 4 or 5 of us out there. And
brilliant.
We got these matching shirts that said Good Time Golf on them. And we had a lot of pride in it,
That is awesome.
And so we started, putting the right people together, getting the right people out there. And, it's been... Good Time Golf has been such a huge part of my life because it's kept me connected. That's
brilliant. Golf is one of those sports too that we do a lot of running and, like you said, triathlons and softball, all that stuff. Very few of us play golf because it feels like it's so like foreign. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's so available, but people have a hard time understanding that like there's a little bit of a learning curve. But if you learn how to shoot a hoop or if you learn how to pitch a ball, you can learn how to swing a club, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, why do you think so many people are just, they don't know of what it offers? Because it's one of those, it is a kind of a hidden sport, I would say.
Yeah.
And hearing you talk like this, I'm like, I'm so glad that we're making this connection because we want to be a part of it. Because I was even telling Marissa over here, I'm like, she went and got some golf clubs. I'm like, what are you getting golf clubs for, right? She's like, I don't know. Well, Max wants to teach me how to golf. I'm like, really? But the more I've been thinking about it, I'm like, all right, why? Remember, it's your resistance to what is that causes you. I'm like, why am I resistant? Because I don't know how. That's just like addiction, right? And recovery. I don't know how to recover, so why try? But it's the same thing. I love the fact that you're doing this. What have you noticed about just the community, the recovery community, when you invite people in? I would imagine that they fall in love with it once they are, cross the threshold of, trying to learn the sport. Did you notice those same kind of things?
Absolutely, yeah. And another, great thing about Good Time Golf is, and it's the main reason I'm here today, is to talk about it because I'm so passionate about it. We have guys who are 20-year-old all the way to guys who are 80, and we're all out there, in the mix. And we have guys that played golf in college that shoot in the 70s, and then we have guys who just came out of sober living that shoot 150. And the message that we always preach is it doesn't matter. This is not a competitive thing. We just want you out there.
Yeah.
We want you out there. And, one of the things we've been fortunate enough to do is, if you can't afford to play, you can't afford clubs. We have so many amazing people that have helped us out. We'll get you clubs. We'll pay for your agreed fees because golf is an expensive sport.
It is. I mean, you think about it, and I love that too. When we say, hey, you're going to pay $35 to go run a 10K or something, they're like $35. I'm like, you used to spend that an hour when you're addiction. So I love that concept too. But you have availability if people need some assistance to introduce them.
Absolutely. That's the biggest thing that we've preached from the beginning is if we have the means, we're going to make it possible.
Brilliant.
And so, I think our biggest thing is after treatment. What do you do after treatment?
Exactly.
It's that aftercare. It's putting these these tools into action. And so we see that there's some monotony and things like that in different recovery meetings, things like that, which is a good thing. But also we thought, how is there a way to get away from that and still be recovery focused?
I love it. Well, because I the more you're talking about it, the more it kind of runs through my mind. And I'm kind of a doofus when it comes to this kind of stuff because I'm like, I love the sports analogy and recovery. They work so well. And I'm thinking there is a difference between being out there on 18 holes of golf in this amazing, country, whatever course you're playing, because it's not a rush either, right? I mean, the simplistic parts of it is you got to slow down. You got to have patience. You got to have balance. I think in between holes, I'm sure you're not just hauling tush over to the next place. You're probably talking and investing and you're building relationships. It's not like you're running back and forth on a field, on a basketball court. Like there's time to invest too, I would imagine. Like it's not just let's haul tush and get done. It's let's experience this. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I
love it.
It's a weekly aftercare league that we started. So it's every Wednesday afternoon. There's 4 or 5 hours where we have men and women. We're trying to get more women involved. So that's one of our big goals.
Let's go, listeners. Yeah.
Let's get you out there, ladies. We would love to have you. But, that 4 or 5 hours is, yes, we're talking recovery. We're talking life. We're having a lot of those difficult conversations, building relationships. And, all my best friends today are in recovery or part of Good Time Golf. And, something I'm extremely grateful for. But yeah, it is. It's very peaceful, and there's so many life lessons, like you say.
For sure.
Out there
has to be, because, I look at that too, and I think, it's funny. We do these relay races, right? And we've done some that have lasted all day and all night, like these 100, 200-mile things. And it's funny because everything kind of starts off recovery, but then it gets into just normal talk, like real stuff, and it's still based off of like, who they are, but it's like, once they get through that threshold, it's like there's more to you than just addiction and recovery too. There's also purpose and dreams and goals and aspirations and fears and all that kind of other stuff. And I would imagine that the more you get to know those players, the more that stuff starts to come out too, to where they're not just in recovery, they're humans.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You see that as well?
Yeah. I mean, one of the most gratifying things for me being a part of this deal and watching it grow, we went from having 4 guys to, we have 60, 70 guys out every week now.
Brilliant.
And so it's been so amazing to watch where people can go after treatment. A lot of times people come to the treatment for the first time and they get out and they're hit with all this, what do I do now?
Yeah.
All the tools have been provided. They tell you what to do. But it's like, how do I put this into action? And it's a scary place to be.
Sure.
We've all been there. So to watch a lot of these, we really try and reach out to some of the younger guys who are in sober living and things like that, give some structure. But to watch a lot of these guys build their lives back up is unbelievably satisfying to me. I just can't even begin to describe. I've seen guys come from the depths of their heroin, meth, whatever it is, alcohol addiction, and they're building themselves back up and they're stable forces in this community.
Exactly.
Which is just so cool to see.
It makes perfect sense. I'm curious. We bumped into some of this, and over the 12 years now that we've been doing this, it's kind of calmed down. But the community, the golfing community, once they get to know, like, oh, these guys are out in recovery. That's what this, good time golf is. How have you seen them accept these folks now too, of like, they're just golfers now too. They're not just addicts, but now they're also golfers. Have you seen the community kind of embrace that too?
It's been so fun to watch.
It's the coolest thing, isn't it?
It's the coolest thing because, not everyone is in recovery that is a part of Good Time Golf. We have
I love it.
Our sponsors, things like that. And everyone's just there, for the day, living in the moment, and to see the community embrace what we're doing has been amazing. So we're a 501c3, we're a nonprofit.
Brilliant.
We have 3 big events throughout the year. So we do, or 4, I should say. We do a St. George winter invitational retreat where we have, 60 to 70 people come out and we all go down there and kick the year off. And a couple months later, we do an invitational where we really try to focus on those younger, newer people in recovery. We invite them out. We provide a day on the golf course where, between sponsors and people, a lot of different treatment centers, sober livings are involved,
Nice.
which they've been so great. And then we move forward and we do one, fundraiser type event, which again, the community has been so generous, and we've been able to do what we set out to do because of that community, and the generosity and the people willing to support people in recovery. And, one of the other great things is to see, just a person in the community who's a supporter, and then you have the addict, athlete, person in recovery over here, to see them kind of
I love that.
mingle and get to know each other for who they are. Yeah, it's amazing. So then we put on one final event in the year, and we co-sponsor the Utah Open down here in Utah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So we have a day
That's
where
a big deal.
Yeah, we try to reward some of the people who've been doing the deal and been a big part of Good Time Golf throughout the year, and it's kind of our fun day to get out there and just enjoy being sober.
I love it, man.
Just embrace the opportunities that we have today. So many of us, I can go back there right now, but, you talk about being in the desert, but whatever that looks like for the person, we come from the depths of our addictions, and we get to be out there and just embrace it, celebrate where we're at today.
I love that, man. So, curiosity, I mean, we're kind of running out of time, but what did it do for you? What did it do for you the first time you dropped the ball on the tee and you're like, well, all right, I'll give this a shot? Like, what did it do for you?
As far as Good Time Golf?
Yeah, I mean, that whole concept of like, I'm turning over a whole new leaf. I'm changing everything there is about me.
Yeah.
But allowing that good to come forward. What did it do for you?
It did everything. It kept me connected because I'm a person who relapse is a part of my story. I didn't stay sober through it all, but the first 2 or 3 people that showed up the last time I went to treatment were people that were part of Good Time Golf, and they're there for me.
Brilliant.
Saying, hey, we're behind you. We believe in you.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, it's kept me connected. It's allowed me to see how important service is and being available to others. I mean, 100%. the one thing, I know we're running out of time, but the one thing that I preach is, what we want to do at Good Time Golf is give opportunities to people who wouldn't otherwise have those opportunities. So we've been able to raise money, and ironically enough, we've put, I think, 10 to 12 people through different parts of treatment, and ironically enough, I think 9 or 10 of those have been women. So,
man.
But yeah, to be able to, just be a small part of that,
exactly.
It means the world to me.
Man, I love that kind of stuff, and it's true. I think that there's so many opportunities for us if we're willing to just kind of lean into it. It's kind of like I'm a firm believer that we're all kind of marching towards this horizon. Even the day you climbed out of your car and started walking, you were going to some horizon. The problem is those horizons always change. Right when we get there, we'll never truly reach it, but we can always look back and see how far we've come. Do you do that from time to time? I mean, you talk about relapse, and I think, when we look at relapses, I look at the difference between what a relapse is versus what I call a slip, which is an acronym for sobriety loses its purpose. And once you reestablish that purpose, that slip begins to fade, and you can get back on course. Do you see how far you've come from all that?
I do.
You take time to look back?
Yeah, some days I pinch myself. I look at, the guys that we have, surrounding me that are on the board at Good Time Golf, and a lot of my best friends, people I look up to, and I realize how lucky we are. I realize the opportunity. My main purpose today is to be the dad that I want to be,
Brilliant.
And I'm able to do that, and I have this amazing relationship with my 3 daughters, and I have a girlfriend today, and we have a very healthy relationship, which is something that's new to me, but I'm just so grateful to be where I'm at today.
Yeah, well, I can feel it, brother. How do people find you guys? How do people like get connected with you? What's your website, your socials, all that fun stuff?
So I guess I'm kind of old school. I don't have all our socials on the top of my head, but we are on Instagram.
We'll add them all.
Yeah, that'd be great. Could use your help. But yeah, we're on Instagram. We do have a website out there that tells a lot of the different events that we have going on and things to look forward to. The guys that run our Instagram, they're very, very involved in trying to keep people up to date with what's going on and, connect with other people, great organizations like yours. This is such a blessing to be able to get connected with you. And
for sure.
Because, we're so much stronger together.
I agree.
If we
100%.
If we all stick together and move forward and kind of lean on each other and things like that, it's nothing.
I love it. I think, here, we'll make you this deal. Like we'll come up and play some golf with you as long as you guys come down and run some races with us.
Absolutely.
We'll bridge those gaps. Listeners, you've been well fed. We'll add all those social links to the podcast and to all of our socials as we broadcast this out. But Patrick, thanks for taking some time, man, coming down and sharing this with us. I know this won't be the last time we talk. I guarantee it, because this is going to spark a lot of interest. I know, and I love the fact that heart beats in the same rhythm of what we're doing, and I'm truly honored that you'd even consider us on that same level, because we still feel kind of like we're just a little part of recovery. But it's cool to see that the passion's there. I can feel your energy, and man, I'm just overwhelmed by just your willingness to share that, because you have to relive it every time you talk about it, but it gets a little bit easier each time you do that, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And just thank you so much for having us today. I was able to listen to some of your podcasts, the last couple of days, and it gets me fired up thinking about it, all the avenues and different ways that you can help people. You guys have done such an amazing job. So thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. So listeners, you know that you've been well fed. Let's jump on our socials. Keep Addict Athlete bookmarked. The website's all available. Any way to contact us will be probably easiest to find at addict2athlete.org. And chapters. We have chapters all over Utah and expanding. Remember to check out our Sober Coach training program to open chapters of Addict Athlete in your community. And athletes, until next time, continue to turn that mess into a message.